Good afternoon, Judge. If you could identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Phil McLaughlin. I'm an attorney at practice law in the Coney Range. I began practicing law in the Coney in 1974 and practiced in 1997. I resumed practice in 2002 and I practiced here today. I was Attorney General in the state from 1997 to 2002. I thought I would just take a moment and explain to you how I manage the office, because I think it may be relevant to the way you're thinking about this particular situation. All of my predecessors in modern history who became Attorney General had come up in the office, beginning with Warren Rudman, Justice Souter, Tom Rath, Greg Smith, Jeff Howard. I did not come up through the office. My dad was an investigator in the office. That's all I knew of the Attorney General's office. What I was a perfectly ordinary Central New Hampshire attorney. My practice was somewhat different. That is to say, I had been a prosecutor as Belknap County attorney in the late 70s, early 80s. I had tried hundreds of criminal cases. I had represented many individuals as defense counsel in murder cases. I had tried several first-degree murder cases from start to finish with jury verdict. I point this out to you to make the comment that when I became Attorney General, although I had well-founded concerns about my ability to manage the civil docket, I really didn't have any concerns at all about my ability to manage the criminal docket. And I did. Over the course of my tenure of those years, almost 6 years, there were some 80 homicides in New Hampshire. The vast majority of them resulted in arrests, prosecutions, convictions. There were some of them that were particularly unique. And I thought I would just refresh your recollection, because I suspect you may remember them if I speak about them. On July 3rd, 1997, a couple of months after I was appointed, a 6-year-old girl, Elizabeth Knapp, was raped and murdered in her home, a short distance west of here. On August 19th, Kyle Draga shot numbers of people in the North Country. On August 24th, Jeremy Sharon was murdered out in Epsom. I will tell you that unless you're made of stone, there is nothing that will reach you more than the death of a 6-year-old who was raped and murdered. And I don't think in that human sense my experience is any different than any of yours would be in similar circumstances, or for that matter, citizens throughout the state. I can tell you that the experience of kneeling beside Trooper Phillips' body or Les Law's body, or kneeling beside the body of Judge Bonnet, who was a very small woman covered with tar parking lot. These are experiences that get the blood going. They motivate you in extraordinary ways, and they did me. In Elizabeth Knapp's case, her mom, who was sleeping next door, identified a man named Richard Buchanan, said she saw it. Well, if you have to be a prosecutor and someone's mom says that's the person who raped and murdered my daughter, then appreciate what the impact of that is. So we arrested him. And I began to carefully engage in this process of deciding whether or not to bring capital murder charges. I will tell you, I would have brought capital murder charges against Kyle Draga if he was killed by state police across the border in Vermont. If it had been 10 years earlier, if it had been 87, I would suspect, I believe, that Richard Buchanan would have been convicted of capital murder. That's what I believe. What saved him? DNA, a relatively new science at that time. Interestingly enough, Kelly Ayler was a prosecutor in the office at that time, a young woman from my point of view whom I had hired because of her reputation as a prosecutor, as an attorney. She was the first attorney I recollect in the office who became skilled at the presentation of DNA evidence. Well, please also bear in mind that as we were dealing with this issue of DNA, I had come to visit me a well-respected state senator and a member of the House. I don't remember the member of the House, I vividly remember the state senator, pounding on my desk and insisting that we pursue the death penalty against Richard Buchanan, because I couldn't speak about that. But I remember what I thought about it, and I remember what I said to the Deputy Attorney General a short time later, and that was, I wonder if the Senator would be interested in knowing that the man may not die. I point this out because I think you can all understand that there's much in life that it doesn't rattle us a whole lot, but there are certain things that rattle us a lot. I'm sure you can look to your own experience and understand that sometimes your constituents would not even know what you were doing. Other times you're probably pounding on your door and calling them. Well, if you lived my life at the Attorney General's office at that time, they were pounding on my door. And that presents the question, does that make a difference? Well, I can tell you, in the prosecution of those other many, many homicides, there was barely a ripple. So the professionals go about their business and just do it in a very, very methodical way. But when you start, it's like being inside a barrel with people pounding on it. And that presents the question, are you then capable of making errors of judgment? The answer to the question is, it should be obvious that we are. And I point that out because I have heard prosecutors say, using the phrase exceptional, New Hampshire's an exceptional place and there is no possibility of error. Well, tell that to Richard Buchanan. Also think of it from another perspective, and that is while we were pursuing Richard Buchanan, there was a murderer out there who was not being pursued. His name was James Dale, ultimately arrested as Buchanan was released. That was a horrible, horrible experience. I took a picture of Elizabeth Knapp and I put it in a bookcase immediately adjacent to the door of my office. And I looked at it many times a day as I was going out. I did it for two reasons. One, I suppose, just as an adult, it was a way of paying respect to a child who died in mysterious circumstances. But the other, as Attorney General, was as a reminder to me that I, an experienced person, was absolutely convinced of facts that did not exist. Now, that's called a comeuppance. And I suppose I should be happy at the end of the day that that was an extraordinary lesson to me because I never behaved that way again. I never did. Jeremy Sherman was killed. There were two people involved, Paul, Perry. They were both menaces. We believe Perry did it. We indicted Perry for capital. I indicted him for capital murder. I proved all of this. No one's responsibility for my life. And then we were under a specific court order, as I recollect, by Judge Nettle, not the current, to immediately give over exculpatory evidence, a duty that we had irrespective of the court order. And what happened is that the person who was a cellmate of the other defendant, Paul, made a statement that Paul had acknowledged that he was the one that did it. And we managed to withhold that statement for 100 days. And because of that, we're incredibly sanctioned by the Superior Court. So I point out to you that this is the best of all worlds so people don't make mistakes. I'm pointing this out to you because, in fact, we did make mistakes. And I wanted to bring that to your attention. I have prepared remarks, Senator Carson, which are your permission to report.
Certainly, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.